All right, so I've gone through the brainstorming with you. I have discussed what the actual writing prompt is and what you were expected to do and the rubric. So now I'm going to go through and read an example writing to you just to give you an idea of how all of the elements that I've discussed are used in the writing. So it's hard to see the title, but the title that I gave my writing is A Perfect Saturday. I'll never forget how proud I felt the night that I took my kids to see Cinderella at the drive-in theater. Gary was 13 and always tried his best to make me happy. His younger siblings, Deborah and Rick, were the perfect example of little siblings. At one point, they would tease and annoy him on purpose. The next minute, they would want to do whatever he was doing. That day was a perfect example. It all began when I woke up late that morning to an almost silent house. The kids were in the living room with the TV turned down and breakfast was on the table. After a long week at work candling eggs, I felt relieved to have a nice, calm morning. This good behavior was a prelude for the day. I could tell that Gary had prepared it because Deborah and Rick wouldn't have thought to spread the jelly so perfectly on the toast. I soon noticed that Gary was outside digging the weeds out of the flower bed. Little did he know that I had just sprayed the weeds, which would result in them dying in a few days. Next, I started cleaning the kitchen because the kids had left it a mess. I then noticed that Gary was now mowing the lawn, although it was still beaded with dew. He always made me proud. Rick, on the other hand, was pestering him and pointing out every little spot he missed. Gary had become a master at ignoring his siblings when needed. Gary stayed busy throughout the morning and didn't even stop when he got a bee sting and his foot started pulsating. He gets his hard-working skills from me. About an hour after finishing the yard, I saw Gary and Rick waxing the car. I was slightly anxious when I saw this because they had not done this before. However, they seemed to be doing a great job at first. The car was so shiny that it made me wince when I looked at it. Gary was being very patient with Rick now that Rick wanted to help instead of annoy him. They came in for lunch and went right back outside to continue working. Not long after lunch, I noticed the boys arguing outside. Deborah was smart and stayed inside instead of getting involved. I knew if this went on for too long, the outcome wouldn't be nice, so I decided to put a stop to it. I immediately noticed the look of panic in their eyes and understood the argument. The car looked horrible. I'm still not sure how it happened, but the car was foggy white. Vigorously polishing the car couldn't fix it. I was luckily able to wash it off and told the kids to get ready for the movies. Later that night at the drive in, Gary didn't last very long. I think he made it through the first feature, but fell asleep soon after Cinderella had started. He had worked so hard all day in hopes of earning this reward. In the end, I was the one that was rewarded because, although I wasn't a perfect parent, I could tell that my son was growing up, and I couldn't be more proud. Okay, so let me talk about a couple elements that are required of your writing, and I'm going to point out how they're used in my writing in this example. So you have to use transition words, which, as I said earlier, are phrases like "it all started," "at first," things that show chronological order. So the phrase here, "it all began," that right there is transition. That lets you know that something is starting, something's about to occur. Next, that's another transitional word. It indicates that there's going to be something that occurs next. Also, about an hour after finishing the yard, that shows a transition from one event to another one. Not long after lunch, later that night at the drive in, and even in the end. This is one I didn't bold on accident, but that's another example. Those are all transitions. They just show how the day goes along. When we split our details into three parts, this can show you how it's split up into different sections. So that's where the brainstorming and graphic organizer can come into play to help you. You're also required to use the vocabulary that we've discussed in class, and I went ahead and underlined every spot where I used it. So this good behavior was a prelude for the day. The lawn was still beaded with dew. And notice I took exactly how it's used in the text, reworded it, and included that in my writing. She winced when she looked at the car. They even tried to vigorously polish the car, but it wouldn't work. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. And oh, here we go, pulsating. His foot started to pulsate when he got stung by the bee. So notice I didn't try to create some new way of using the words. I used it the way it's still used in the text. Okay, so you have to refer to the mom's emotions. And let's see, what color? Let's go with yellow. So there's all different spots in here where I included how the mother felt, which connects with the whole point of view. She felt proud. Um, let's see, she felt relieved. Um, he always made me proud. There again, she felt proud. Um, his hardworking skills he got from me. There she feels proud. She's connecting his behavior with hers. Here she was anxious. She was worried. Um, Here she noticed this is something that she saw happening outside. Here she was luckily able. That lets us know how she felt. And in the end, I was the one who was rewarded. So we know how she felt here. And she couldn't be more proud. So obviously in my writing, I focused on how proud she was of the work that he was doing. You can find a different way to describe how she felt. Maybe all throughout the day, she felt relieved that these little chores that he was doing were things that she didn't have to do. But I just want you to pick up on the fact that I wrote a story from the mother's point of view, which was the first part of the T chart. I used multiple pieces of evidence from the text. And keep in mind, I even added a few things that were not actually part of the story. I'll go ahead and mark those for you so they stand out. Let's see. I'll go with lime green. Okay, so this part's about spraying the weeds. I added that. Cleaning the kitchen. It doesn't say anything about her cleaning the kitchen. That was something else that I added. So it's okay to add just a little bits, but don't put too much extra effort into that and waste time adding those little pieces. So I used direct evidence from the text. I used transition words. So that is the precise language, narrative techniques by adding descriptions, and I have correct grammar. I have correct punctuation and spelling. So this is probably a little longer and more elaborate than what your writing prompt might look like. You might be more descriptive and add more details. But as long as you have each of these elements that is required for the writing, your final product should be a perfect 100. So if you have any questions, let your teacher know. Feel free to ask for any clarification. That's what we're here for. And can't wait to read all the different writings that y'all come up with.